Welcome to our final Los Angeles City Section Baseball podcast. Connor Morissette and Alex Scar. We're going to take a couple-month hiatus from podcasts, but we'll be bouncing around doing some summer football stuff. So, Alex, today we got our final top 10, futures team we'll discuss, and then next year's top 10, the way too early top 10. How's that sound to you?
Sounds pretty good. Wrapping up baseball, like you mentioned, we're going to do some football. They got 7-on-7 camps. Training camp starts in about a month. We can't wait, but we still have a few loose ends to tie up in baseball. Let's get to it.
So in the top 10, the one big debate we had, 1 through 9 was fairly simple, but the one debate we had, San Pedro or Carson at 10, we ended up going with San Pedro, and to me it's just because they made the open and Carson didn't. Carson had a great run in D1, but at the end of the day, that is the consolation bracket, so I was more of an advocate for San Pedro to make it, and we ended up siding that way, but I know there's an argument that you have for Carson as well.
Yeah, I just thought Carson finished the season really well, and this being our final top 10, I kind of wanted to judge them based on how they finished the season. So in my mind, I think Carson, if we were to reseed and pick the top 10 seeds, I think no doubt about it, Carson's in there. But you talked about San Pedro, and you had a pretty good argument. They were the winners of the Marine League. They won the tiebreakers, and then they got into that open division, which is oh so important. You get into Division I, that's not the top 12 teams. That's not part of the best teams in the city section, so Carson kind of got snubbed there. But to me, the way they finished the season, I had them at 10, but we'll talk about it later. They're still on our futures team, and I think they're going to be very good.
There were 11 really good teams in the city section this season, and I think Carson just misses. But remember, way back when we were talking about the seedings before they came out, I thought Carson had a better resume than San Pedro, but of course San Pedro won the tiebreakers, so
right.
They had to get in, but I was a Carson fan back then. Now,
what happened?
I've changed a little bit because I just think if more people thought that they deserved to be in the open than Carson did, then they should be in our top 10. But I think this explanation, I don't think too many people are going to be up in arms about this. So 9 teams left. Let's go 3 by 3. So 9 San Fernando, 8 Banning, and 7 Verdugo Hills, the Division I champs. Again, they were out of the open division, but when you win Division I, I think that pushes you in, and that's why they're there.
Yeah, they're impressive. I think they got a pretty good lineup. We talked at length about Roca and Gray and some of the other guys over there. The reason Verdugo's not higher is we think there are a lot of loaded teams. At the end of the season, every single one of the teams we have ranked ahead of Verdugo, I think would have beaten them. So I'm confident having Verdugo where they are, but we've still got some really good baseball teams coming up.
Yeah, shout out San Fernando and Banning picking up wins in the open division, so that's why they make the top 10. So 6-5, 4-6 Kennedy, 5 Roosevelt, 4 Cleveland. Kennedy and Roosevelt, great seasons from them. They just miss out on the semifinals of the open division, and then Cleveland gets in as well. Cleveland, a team we're looking to in the future. They're going to be great next year. A lot of young talent.
Yeah, we were impressed with Kennedy and Roosevelt. Kennedy really kind of pushing Birmingham, Roosevelt really pushing El Camino Real. So both those teams, I think, we kind of had them on our radars. We had Kennedy up early in some of our top 10s. Roosevelt was always fluctuating in that 5-6 hole. So both of these teams, I think, really respected, and they belong in our top 10.
And then top 3, it's looked this way for most of the year, although there was some movement a little bit, but these were the best 3 teams. Chatsworth, number 3, El Camino Real, 2, and Birmingham, number 1. Wow, I'm sure that loss for El Camino Real still stings a little bit.
Oh, yeah.
They probably should be number 1, but Birmingham, they found a way to win that championship, and that's why they are the 1 seed. Johnny Tincher was the city section player of the year. We had Charlie Roca for our player of the year, but Tincher, a very worthy candidate as well.
Yeah, a win is a win is a win, so it doesn't really matter. Like you mentioned, El Camino, does it sting? Absolutely. I mean, they're going to get right back to it. They're going to play fall ball and winter ball and kind of get right back to where they were, I think, at the end of this season. But for Birmingham's purposes, they went out, and when it mattered most, they got the W. They dug deep. They figured out how to execute, move guys in, score the runs they needed to win, and then DJ Virginia, we talked about him last week, did a fantastic job shutting them down. So final top 10, you got to go with the open division champs.
All right, let's take a look at our futures team where we highlight the top freshman and sophomore, and even 1 junior makes the cut. Guys who didn't get the recognition from our all-city team. We really focus mainly on seniors, although a few underclassmen snuck in there. But this is mostly for those younger guys. And let's start on the mound. Anthony Hoya from Banning had a fantastic year. Eric Sondheimer tweeted out, Banning's going to win a city section title with this guy at school. They didn't win it this year, so they got 3 years left. But how great was he for a young kid?
I mean, you could make an argument Hoya was one of the best pitchers in the entire section, let alone best freshman pitchers. Easily the most impressive freshman that we saw all season long. Hoya and Banning Pilots, they're in a really, really good spot with that kid on the mound. And Sondheimer really going out on the limb saying, hey, they're going to win a city title in one of these
West Valley. That is going out on a limb.
Yeah, so, I mean, they're going to have some tough competition, but with a kid like that on the hill, you always have a shot. And Hoya, pretty much the only standout case for us, he's taking the ball on our pitchers.
Absolutely, and Albert Garcia was a great pitcher as well. We'll get to him in a little bit. At catcher, junior, Miles Anderson from Valley Academy of Arts and Sciences. Now, I know what people are thinking. What? That's a school? Yes, it is. They have a very good baseball team. 2 seasons ago, they won a city championship. This past year in Division III, they made it to the semifinals. And Miles Anderson, when you talk to the coach over at Voss, Coach McFadden, he says that this is a kid who has a lot of potential. He's the leader of this team. He was the D3 MVP. He's a guy who, in the city section, there are so many great catchers. I wanted to shout him out because I believe he's a really fantastic player. It was a tale of 2 halves of the season with this guy. First half of the year, people were throwing to him. Hit a ton of homers, high average. Second half of the season, he got walked every time, kind of like Charlie Roca.
Yeah.
And when you get walked, you have to kind of take it with a grain of salt and understand that there's a reason that this is happening, and just take your base. That's what Coach McFadden would try to explain to Miles Anderson. He's a great, great talent. If you can catch a Voss game next season, I recommend it because behind the plate, great defensively, great hitter as well. Yeah,
catcher was one of those spots when we were looking at our original top and full team. That was a tough spot for us to pick because there were so many. But when you kind of look for a futures team, when you look at a lot of freshmen and sophomores, not a lot of them are catchers. That's a position that's really kind of trusted to juniors and seniors. Those are the guys that really kind of have to deal with that workload. So finding a catcher was tough. Heck, even Miles Anderson is a junior. He's not even technically a sophomore for this list. But as you talk about, a really fantastic season there for that kid, so he gets a shout-out from us.
First base, Eric Rivas from Birmingham, and he's a guy who, if he was a senior, probably would have made, or we would have considered more for that all-city team. The fact that he's a young guy, who could stick him on the futures team, give him some recognition that way, made a lot of sense for what we're doing here. Great player, and in a different year, maybe he makes that all-city team, but this season, first base was really crowded, so we get him at the futures team. A great player, great hitter.
Yeah, Rivas rakes. Had a heck of a postseason. Really hit the ball very well as that season started to wind down there for Birmingham. Had a pretty good outing there in the semifinals, also in the finals. We wanted to shout him out. I know the city section shouted him out as one of their all-city players, but Rivas, only a sophomore. That's going to be a fantastic lineup for Birmingham for a couple of years to come. Tinter's going to be a senior next year, plus you got a guy like Rivas holding it down over there. So Eric Rivas, heck of a year, and I can only wait to see what he's got for his next 2 seasons.
At second base, a young gun from Roosevelt, we have Edgar Tepete. Guy could lay down a bunt, plays great defense, good hitter as well, good contact hitter. I saw him play against Granada Hills. I was very impressed with him in the first round of the Open Division. Just a good fundamental baseball player, and we weren't able to shout out a Roosevelt player for our all-city team. I'm glad that a Roosevelt player gets some recognition here for the futures team. Tepete is a great player, one to watch for the future.
Yeah, hold it down, Eastern League.
Absolutely. Shortstop, we have Ben Chasik from Cleveland. That's not the first Cleveland player we're going to see. That's
there's several.
Great year from Cleveland, kind of out of nowhere, but it was these sophomores, these young guys that really powered them to success in the city section, and Chasik had a lot to do with it.
Yeah, Chasik, I watched that guy do a couple of really clutch things. One of them was laying down a bunt, helping walk them off in a game against Kennedy that we saw.
Great.
So that was a fantastic piece of hitting. He's also he's got a knack for the clutch and a really fluid player at shortstop. Really collects the ball well, really good footwork. You don't really see that out of young kids, right? The ability to kind of stay contained in your own body, not try to get ahead of yourself. Ben Chasik, he's only, 16 years old, already looks like one of the best players. Can't wait to see what he's got next year.
At third base from the Venice Gondoliers, Luke Boulanger, a guy who you were able to see a couple times this year when you checked out Venice. Why does he make this team?
Well, I remember texting you when I watched him, and I said, Luke Boulanger, future major leaguer. Now, I don't know if that's actually going to come true or not. The kid's only a freshman. He's a freshman on varsity. He's about as big as I am already at 14, 15 years old. A really fluid swing and just holds down the hot corner really well. A lot of freshmen, that's tough because you've got kids who have matured those extra 3 or 4 years and they're ripping balls down that third baseline. So for him to be able to kind of hold down that corner and do really well, really impressed with just kind of the footwork and how he maintains his body down there. Boulanger's a name we're going to watch. We've talked about Morrissey over there. He's just a junior, so these two guys in that left side of the infield, boy, watch out for the Gondos. They're going to be very good.
Not the first freshman on this list. We'll get to another in a second. Left field, Chris Lozano from Cleveland. maybe the best of the young bunch for Cleveland. A great player, good pitcher as well. Really was impressed with him this year.
Yeah, we kind of had to find a spot to put Chris Lozano because he pitches. He also plays some first base. Kind of had to stick him in the outfield because, frankly, he's got to make this team. He really was one of the best players we saw there at Cleveland. We talked to him after one of his big wins, and he just seems like a kid that's very motivated. I know Cleveland, we talked about it, especially me. I kind of slighted him, and they feel it. A team loaded with sophomores, going to be juniors. Boy, when it comes to their senior season out in 2020, the West Valley League better watch out because I think this team is going to be the overwhelming favorites.
In center field, surprise, surprise, another player from Cleveland. We have Alec Garcia.
Yeah, another guy that we've talked about before, Chris Lozano, Garcia. We've got Ben Chasik over there. I mentioned that the West Valley League is going to kind of be put on notice. Well, consider this, if last year wasn't enough notice that these guys are coming, consider this kind of your official warning because Cleveland's going to be very good, and Alec Garcia and Lozano holding down that outfield.
In right field, Jake Harper from San Pedro, a young gun who got some recognition from the Marine League, an all-league player. And he's a guy who we didn't see too much of San Pedro this year, but we knew he was a name to watch out for, and he makes the cut in right field.
Yeah, Jake Harper from San Pedro, the freshman down there in right field, that's always going to be a good sign. If you've got freshmen, young players on varsity, good for him. I'm excited to see what San Pedro has. The Marine League was really tight last year. We've talked about Carson probably going to reload and be good. We've talked about Banning being so good with Anthony Hoya, so I think San Pedro, they've got the work cut out for them, but Harper's going to be one of the guys to watch.
In another Chris Lozano-esque situation, where do we put Albert Garcia? He can pitch, fantastic hitter. We have him at DH. I know the Birmingham crowd is watching this video probably thinking, where is Bert? He didn't even make the All-City team. What's going on with these two? They don't know.
We like
baseball
Bert, don't
player.
worry.
Yeah, we know Albert Garcia is a great player. He makes our DH, and again, if we weren't really hell-bent on selecting seniors for that all-city team, he's a shoo-in to make that as well. But we thought we'll honor him with the future team selection. Great player. Probably the best player on this team, I think.
Yeah, I mean, of this collection of guys right here, I think I'd give it to Albert Garcia. I mean, I know the city section, they had him as one of their best pitchers.
Yeah.
I think the best pitcher,
yep.
pitcher of the year in the city section at just a sophomore. You talked about we kind of wanted to limit the pitchers and the hitters to juniors and seniors because these are the guys that are leaving, want to give them the shout-outs. Those are the guys that really kind of help carry their team. Bert was pretty much the one exception, the guy that helped carry the team and still was only 15, 16 years old.
Yeah, doesn't look it, though.
Doesn't look it. I
Big
mean,
kid.
he looked kind of like a grown man, but boy, oh boy, Birmingham's going to be very, very good. I just kind of basically said Cleveland's going to win the West Valley League. Slow down.
He might have something to say about that.
Bert Garcia and Eric Rivas both have 2 more seasons of baseball to play, so shout out to both those guys.
So our future top 10, there's going to be movement. This is kind of out of left field for some people, but we want to give baseball fans something to kind of sink their teeth into in the offseason. So I'm just going to read out our list, and then we'll kind of go through some notes. So at 10, we have Roosevelt, 9, San Pedro, 8, Palisades, 7, Carson, 6, we have Banning, 5, Venice, 4, El Camino Real, 3, Chatsworth, 2, Cleveland, and 1, Birmingham. So why does Birmingham stay at number 1 for you?
Well, we just got done talking about them, Rivas and Bert Garcia. That, for me, is the reason why they're number 1. Throw in the player of the year in the city section, Johnny Tincher, and you've got a team that really has a good shot to go 3 for 3 in the last 3 years winning city titles. I really like Cleveland. We've talked a lot about them. They were a semifinal team this last year. They're going to be right there. But for me, I think the amount of leadership that you're still going to have on the defending champs gives Birmingham the edge over Cleveland.
So 1 through 4, West Valley League, kind of similar to the final top 10 that we have. But then Venice gets in, Banning gets in, Carson gets in. So Venice we're really high on because of Josiah Morrissey. And we just talked about the third baseman that they have over there, Boulanger. So they're fantastic as well. And then Banning and Carson, 2 teams from the Marine League who bring a lot of players back.
Yeah, I think Venice probably wins that Western League next year, although we do have Palisades listed here because Coquillard's going to be a really, really good player for them as well. But I think when you look at that lineup top to bottom, I'm really impressed with Venice. They have a player of the year candidate in Josiah Morrissey. I'm not sure if Pally does. And then looking at Banning and Carson, we've talked about how tough that Marine League is going to be. Anthony Hoya, man, that is going to be such a tough kid to face these next 3 seasons. And Carson returns a lot of players. So they're also, it seems like they've turned that program officially around after having 5 straight different seasons with different coaches. Now they finally have a bit of a program. They've got some legitimacy there. Carson's in there. And then you talked about Palisades and San Pedro kind of rounding it out. But a lot of good young teams here in this Futures Top 10.
8, 9, 10, Pally, San Pedro, Roosevelt. What sticks out to you about those teams?
Palisades, I think we saw them be a little disappointing in that open division. They lost to Kennedy. there's a lot of talent.
They're hungry. Yep.
They're hungry, right? They lose Benji Taylor, who, he's probably their best player all around, but they went undefeated in Western League. They won the league. There's still a lot of good talent. I've talked about Will Coquillart. He's kind of going to be that leader next season. He was on the city all-city team. So to win the Western League, you're going to have to deal with Venice and Palisades. I know I picked Venice, but Pali, they're going to be right there. Like I mentioned, they went undefeated in Western League, so plenty to watch.
And with Roosevelt, that Eastern League, it's theirs for the taking, as is most seasons. And San Pedro, we talked about the young talent that they have, so look out for them in that Marine League. For Alex Garr, I'm Connor Morissette. We'll be doing some stuff over the summer, but if you don't see as much of us, it's because school is not in session. But when it returns in August, we will be back for football. I know Alex is excited. I am amped. We'll see you then.